After coming out of Susan's room, Jacob returned to the gate of the palace, and General Arthur was waiting for him patiently. "Prince, are you headed back now?" General Arthur walked over and asked. "No. I need to see another person." Jacob shook his head. "Who?" General Arthur asked carefully. Now that Jacob was not only the prince, but also the commanding general who controlled close to 1,000,000 soldiers, General Arthur was subconsciously more cautious with his words. "Henry," Jacob said. General Arthur froze, but then nodded immediately. "I'll show you the way." Since Jacob was the commanding general who controlled the military, General Arthur couldn't refuse his request to visit a captive. The night in the Dragon Palace was so quiet that the only sounds were their footsteps. General Arthur led Jacob into the Ice Palace, where Jade and Julia were once imprisoned. "Let me out! My grandpa will destroy your North Atlantic with great troops!" Hearing their footsteps, Henry immediately yelled. General Arthur led Jacob around several huge ice blocks and walked to the depth of the palace. Thin and pale-faced, Henry was prisoned in an iron cage. At his feet were some simple dishes, which he had kicked aside. At the sight of Jacob, he yelled louder. "How dare you come here? You're all gonna die. Within 3 days, my grandpa will graze you to the ground with the troops of South Atlantic." Jacob looked at him with a smile. Henry was the frog that was living in the well. Imprisoned in the Ice Palace, Henry knew nothing about the situation outside, oblivious to the fact that the South Atlantic Dragon Clan had been defeated and that their palace had been smashed to the ground. "How dare you treat me like this? You've breached the alliance of the 4 oceans. The other 3 dragon palaces will deal with you together with full force." At Jacob's silence, Henry shook the cage and threatened more viciously. As a dignified crown prince of the South Atlantic Dragon Clan, Henry couldn't bear the disgrace of being a prisoner of the North Atlantic Dragon Clan. He was planning to bring the most powerful elders of the South Atlantic to destroy the North Atlantic Dragon Palace once he returned. He didn't know that the powers of the South and the North Atlantic had switched places. Otherwise, after Jacob destroyed half the South Atlantic Dragon Palace, Grandmaster Hank would have brought his troops directly to the North Atlantic instead of forming an alliance with the other 2 ocean dragon clans. "Speak! Why don't you speak? Are you afraid?" Henry yelled even louder at Jacob's silence. "Let's go." Jacob turned to General Arthur and said, "As you wish." General Arthur turned and led Jacob towards the gate. "Are you afraid to talk to me? I'm telling you, when I get out, I'll deal with you." Henry shook his cage and shouted at Jacob. After walking out of the Ice Palace calmly, Jacob suddenly asked General Arthur, "As the commanding general, I can deal with and treat the prisoners, right?" Of course, you have the power to do so," General Arthur answered immediately. "Then release him tomorrow," Jacob said. General Arthur's hunched back straightened a little as he looked up at Jacob. "Are you afraid that the East and West clans will be against us? Or do you think the South Atlantic will launch another attack?" "Neither." Jacob shook his head. "Then you mean—" General Arthur looked confused. "After we release Henry, North Atlantic will be safe for the next few hundred years," Jacob said. General Arthur's confusion on his wrinkled face gradually cleared. Last night before the battle, Darius had instructed General Arthur to hold Henry if North Atlantic was defeated, and release him if North Atlantic won. General Arthur didn't understand at first, and Darius explained to him. "This kid has no talents, no virtues, no ambitions, and no strategies. He is a blessing for North Atlantic." Currently, Jacob's words showed the same perception. Darius prisoned Henry and observed his behavior, and thus knew that this kid was useless. Grandmaster Hank had used a secret method to suppress his realm, so he wouldn't activate the heavenly tribulation and could continue to control the South Atlantic. It meant that the moment Henry would take over this clan, the force would enter a true decline. That was why the North Atlantic Dragon Clan must keep Henry if they were defeated, and must release him if they got the victory. While the power of the South Atlantic decreased recently, Darius took the opportunity to destroy most of their powerful elders with brute force. Now, they couldn't launch a head-on battle against the North Atlantic in the next 200 years. Even after 200 years, Hank would reach the end of his life, and Henry would take over. This was Darius's last move on the chessboard before the end of his life. "What's wrong?" Seeing General Arthur standing there like a statue, Jacob asked. "Prince, are you headed back now?" General Arthur asked with a smile. "Well, yeah. I'll show you the way." General Arthur walked forward with lightened steps. Although this prince only started as a mortal, his mind and vision are close to those of the old Dragon King. On the surface, it looks like the old Dragon King doesn't like the prince. However, he is in fact quite appreciative of him. Now General Arthur began to understand why Darius placed Jacob in the position of the commanding general. Although Jacob had no battle experience, his mind far surpassed those of the other chiefs in the Dragon Palace. After all, Darius had ruled the North Atlantic Dragon Tribe for 1,000 years, and his eyes were really sharp. "General Arthur, you said that if the old Dragon King could teach me personally, I can reach the 5th level quickly, right?" Jacob asked General Arthur suddenly. "The cultivation strength of the old Dragon King has reached a godly realm. Last night when we were battling with the forces of South Atlantic at the main gate, the old Dragon King personally battled with Grandmaster Hank, who is also a top-tier 8th level. Hank was severely wounded by our old Dragon King with only half a strike," General Arthur said. Jacob thought that the battle must have been thrilling, with 2 top-tier 8th level cultivators battling with full forces. The battle must have been earth-shaking. Half of an attack from Darius was enough to force back Hank. If Hank had forced himself to continue the battle, he would have died on the spot. That was why he would rather retreat. It was regretful that a master like Darius still couldn't break the limit on his age. If he put his 1,000 years of cultivation strength into hundreds of 4th level cultivators, it would help them all break through to the 5th level instantly.